Welcome to Reading the Gospels together for Monday, June the 22nd, and today we're reading Luke chapter 23. Things are quickly coming to a head in this Gospel, which we'll be wrapping up this week, but between now and then, Luke has a lot to say to us. And the section that we're looking at really begins at the end of chapter 22. Jesus has been arrested and has been brought before a hastily convened council of the elders, or the Sanhedrin, the Jewish high religious court. And they have two questions for Jesus. The first is, are you the Christ? Jesus gives typically a masterful answer. He says, if I tell you, you will not believe me. And if I asked you, you would not answer. This gives them nothing to go on, of course. But then Jesus adds, but from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God. Well, this stuns them all. And so their second question, well, are you then the Son of God? Jesus replied, you say that I am. Notice that Jesus does not say that he is, only that they say he is. He said nothing thus far which could technically incriminate him, but it's a sham trial, the outcome of which was assured before they met. Why do we need any more testimony? We've heard it from his own lips. Well, no, you didn't, but it little matters. Coming into chapter 23, we find the Sanhedrin bringing Jesus to Pilate in order to make him Pilate's problem. Remember, they're trying to avoid the wrath of the crowd. Notice the charges they bring now have little to do with just went on. They said, we found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be a Messiah, a king. Now, we know that Jesus did not, in fact, oppose paying taxes to Caesar. And it is the Sanhedrin itself which came to the conclusion of his Messiah status and kingship. Nevertheless, rather than religious charges, these are both considered treasonous and seditious, and so they fall firmly into Pilate's lap. Their interview together, so famous in John, is done in shorthand here. So Pilate asked Jesus, are you the king of the Jews? You have said so, Jesus replied. Then Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd, I find no basis for a charge against this man. That's it. Pilate lets Jesus off the hook. So now his accusers play the public disturbance card. He stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. He started in Galilee and he's come all the way here. That gives Pilate an out. When he learned that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. Pilate was responsible for the area around Judea, around Jerusalem itself, but Herod had a responsibility for Galilee up north. So now Pilate hopes he's Herod's problem. Their interview with Herod is often forgotten, and it's more famous for the scene from Jesus Christ Superstar when Herod asks Jesus to walk across my swimming pool. Well, here's how it actually went. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased because for a long time he'd been wanting to see him. From what he'd heard about him, he hoped to see him perform a sign of some sort. He plied him with many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed him and mocked him, and dressing him in an elegant robe, they sent him back to Pilate. Now, Herod's no fool either. He doesn't want the responsibility of dealing with Jesus, who's so popular with the crowds. Remember, Herod made the mistake of beheading John the Baptist, and it had haunted him to that very day. So he contents himself with ridiculing Jesus, treating him like a clown. We're told that Herod dressed him in an elegant robe to mock his kingly status and sent him right back to Pilate. In an intriguing aside, we read, that day Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they'd been enemies. Very strange basis for a friendship. So, once again, Pilate seeks to let Jesus off. Perhaps he too is aware of the sentiments of the crowd. The last thing Pilate wants to do is to give the packed city reason to erupt in protest on the busiest day of the year. So he suggests a quick, quiet whipping and then to release him. But read this carefully. The whole crowd shouted, away with this man, release Barabbas to us. Barabbas had been thrown into prison for an insurrection in the city and for murder. We're not told anything about the custom to release a prisoner here. Perhaps Luke assumes this custom to be well known. What's interesting to me is that Luke identifies for us the crowd as the chief priests, rulers, and the people. But what people? Was it the vast crowd? We're not told it was. Or was it the same group which brought Jesus to Pilate? along with some gathered hangers-on. Remember, the temple hierarchy has been doing all it can to avoid receiving blame for what happens to Jesus. Would they have gathered thousands together to witness this? Maybe we have to revise our idea of Jesus standing before a crowd of thousands while Pilate makes his judgment. Pilate tries 3 times to get Jesus sent off with just a beating, saying, "Why? What crime has this man committed? I've found in him no grounds for the death penalty, therefore I'll have him punished and then release him." But with loud shouts, they insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed, so Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. There's no hand-washing here. It's revealing how Luke does what he can to make Pilate less of a villain. Looks like Pilate's just trying to keep everybody happy, keep the crowd calm. Remember that Luke is writing a gospel for wide distribution within the Roman Empire, particularly among non-Jews. It wouldn't do to overplay the Romans are terrible angle and thus cause the gospel to be suppressed. Well, that's where we're going to leave it for today. Tomorrow, we're going to look at the deeply saddening crucifixion and entombment of Jesus, chapter 23, verses 26 to 56. Read it through carefully. Pay attention to every detail. It deserves it. We'll see you then.